Chapter 55:22. Perhaps it was because she had a bad impression of the Holy Assembly back then, so even after returning to the D family, she had never planned to go to the Holy Assembly. However, it was a good thing that the president was a very nice person. Moreover, she had never heard of such strange remarks in the headquarters of the Holy Assembly. Even after she had become the saintess of the Holy Assembly, no one had ever mentioned anything about her and Beichen's attributes. Walking on the spacious and flat streets of Rome and city, the four of them attracted everyone's attention almost instantly. Look, isn't that Bailey Hongzhuang and D. Beichen from the Blazing Flame sect? That's right, it's them. After a cultivator recognized Bailey Hongzhuang and D. Beichen, many other cultivators realized this and were instantly shocked. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang and D. Beichen were influential figures in the Blazing Flame sect, especially after Bailey Hongzhuang and D. Beichen's attributes had awakened. Could be said that everyone knew about them. Now that the two of them had appeared here again, it was natural that they would be recognized immediately. Lower your voice, she's the saintess of the Holy Assembly now. How dare you call her by her name? Do you have a death wish? After someone's reminder, everyone hurriedly stopped talking. The Holy Assembly had finally found the saintess of the Holy Assembly and even caused such a huge commotion. In a short period of time, the news had spread throughout the entire upper realm. Rome and city was also a relatively large city, so the speed at which the news spread was naturally extremely fast. In addition, such an important matter had attracted everyone's attention. However, when everyone saw the portrait of the saintess of the Holy Assembly, everyone was shocked. Almost everyone who had heard of Bailey Hongzhuang's name was dumbfounded, especially the Holy Assembly and the Blazing Flames sect. Back then, the vice president of the Holy Assembly had rejected Bailey Hongzhuang. Fortunately, the president was not as unreasonable as the vice president. Otherwise, the Holy Assembly branch in Rome and city would be in for a good show. As for the Blazing Flames sect, it was needless to say. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang and D. Beichen were very famous figures in the Blazing Flames sect. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had become the saintess of the Holy Assembly and D. Beichen was the young master of the D family, their identities were simply shocking. Although the cultivators around them had lowered their voices, Bailey Hongzhuang and D. Beichen were still able to hear them. Bailey Hongzhuang Shangguan Yingying's name, Shangguan Xingying's, Shangguan Shui Shui, Shangguan Yingying's, Shangguan Shui 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 of the young master of the Holy Assembly. Saintess of the Holy, Saintess of the Holy Holy Saintess. Saintess of the Holy 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 Saintess of the Holy Saintess of the Holy Saintess. Shui in the day Shui 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 quick Shui 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 brother and Shui Shui family. When Bailey Hongzhuang and D. Beichen arrived at the Blazing Flames sect, Wanyan Han, Wanyan Ling, and Yi Haomiao were already waiting for them. Looking at the three familiar figures, Bailey Hongzhuang and D. Beichen's faces were filled with joy. Senior brother Wanyan Haomiao, we meet again. D. Beichen quickly walked forward and gave them a hug. Haha, I didn't expect it to really be you guys. Wanyan Han laughed loudly. When I heard this news from others, I thought it was fake. How could busy people like you have the time to come here? I didn't expect it to be true. I'm so happy. Chapter 55:23. I'm so happy to see you again. Yi Haomiao's face was filled with joy and excitement. Nothing could compare to the joy of reuniting with old friends. Haha, we're also very happy to see you again. Let's go. Let's not stand here. Let's go to the restaurant we used to frequent, Wanyan Han suggested. Everyone hit it off and immediately walked toward the restaurant. Why did you come to Rome and city this time? Wanyan Ling could not help but ask. With D. Beichen and the others' current status, they should not have returned here. D. Beichen did not intend to hide it. To be honest, we were planning to return to the lower world this time. However, we remembered that Hongzhuang came to Rome and city through the teleportation formation and wanted to see you, so we came back here. I see. Wanyan Ling understood and his eyes were filled with surprise. You're going back to the lower world. Hongzhuang, I told you that it would be very difficult to return to the lower world. I didn't expect you to do it so quickly. You're amazing. Wanyan Han could not help but sigh. When Bailey Hongzhuang first came here, she wanted to leave. However, he told her clearly that it was very difficult to return to the lower world. Generally speaking, there was no hope at all. However, in just a few short years, Bailey Hongzhuang could go back. It was amazing. I was just lucky to become the Saint of Light. That's why I have the chance to go back now. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Alright, senior brothers, do you have any plans to go back? If you want to go back to Tiger Hill, you can come back with us this time. Wanyan Han and Wanyan Ling looked at each other and shook their heads. Our families are long gone. We've always depended on each other. There's no point in going back now. We finally came to the upper world. We plan to stay here forever. That's right. Back then we risked our lives to come here. Wan Yinling smiled. It seems that you're doing well in the Blazing Flames sect. Di Beichen raised his lips and chuckled. I noticed that when you appeared, the cultivators of Raging Flame Gate were very respectful to you. Beichen, this is all thanks to you guys. Yi Haomiao put down his teacup, his interest piqued. When you left, everyone already knew that your identities were extraordinary. Since then, everyone's attitude towards us has become much better than before. Steward Wu has always been good to us. Later on he even put us in important positions. Not long ago, there was news that Hong Zhuang had become the Saintess of the Light. This is even more incredible. I really didn't expect that you guys would still help us after leaving. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be where we are now. Wan Yinhan sighed. How could he have imagined that the woman he had coincidentally saved back then was the Saint of Light? Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. They didn't expect that they would have such a big impact. However, this was also a good thing. Senior brother Wan Yin, if you hadn't saved me, I would have already died. Speaking of which, I should be the one thanking you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled tenderly. Come, let me toast you with a cup of wine. Chapter 55-24. When Ziren looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Wan Yinhan, who were thanking each other and couldn't help but laugh. In my opinion, there's no need to thank each other. This is all fate. There's no cause without effect. If senior brother Wan Yin hadn't saved Hong Zhuang, all these things wouldn't have happened. So this is all fate. Hearing Ziren's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Wan Yinhan looked at each other and smiled. That's right, it's all fate. Then let's toast to fate. Di Beichen raised his cup and laughed. Cheers. After not seeing each other for a long time, everyone was very happy to be reunited. With good wine, good food, and good friends, everyone drank to their heart's content. They didn't leave the restaurant until the evening. Beichen, it's getting late. Why don't you stay here for the night and leave tomorrow? Wan Yinling pondered. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two behind him and shook his head. We'll go directly to the lower world. We have to hurry anyway. Plus there's the training ground. The environment is the same whether it's day or night. Then you have to be careful, Yi Haomiao said with concern. Haomiao, have you drunk too much? Wan Yinhan looked at Yi Haomiao helplessly. With Beichen's current strength, there's basically no need to worry about danger in the lower world. Ah. Yi Haomiao suddenly understood and patted his head. Look at my brain. I'm worried for nothing after drinking too much. Senior brother, Haomiao, if you don't want to stay in the Blazing Flame School and want to leave here, why don't you join us? Before leaving, Di Beichen spoke again. His deep black eyes were filled with sincerity. It was rare to have such close friends in the upper world. He also hoped that they could stay together forever. Wan Yinhan nodded. We'll consider it. If we plan to leave, we'll go directly to the Di family to find you. Although Rong and City is not a small city, its opportunities are not as good as those of the aristocratic families. You should consider it carefully, Wan Ziren also advised. Wan Yinhan and the other two exchanged glances. Actually, they also understood that Di Beichen and Ziren were telling the truth. Even though they were valued by the Inferno School, their development was still not as good as that of Di Beichen. Back then, Ziren's strength was not stronger than theirs, but now, when Ziren's strength had surpassed theirs. This was the difference. Furthermore, when Ziren and the others had entered the Immortal Cloud secret realm, this was something that they could not touch at all. However, as ordinary cultivators, they also knew that the Immortal Cloud secret realm was a top training ground. Unfortunately, only the top cultivators of the various large factions had the opportunity to enter. With their current situation, they might not be able to reach that level even if they worked hard for a lifetime. This is my keepsake. When the time comes, if you decide to find us, just bring this keepsake to the Emperor Cloud City. Wan Yinhan took the keepsake from Di Beichen and held it tightly in his hand. He nodded seriously and said, okay. Noticing the change in Wan Yinhan's expression, Di Beichen knew that he had some plans. Then we'll leave first today. See you later. See you later. Looking at the familiar transmission array in front of them, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others smiled at each other and walked in without hesitation. If it was any other day, they would definitely stop anyone who entered the transmission array. Chapter 55-25. When the four of them opened their eyes again, they were greeted by that familiar darkness. Looking at the terrifying skeleton army in front of them, They were no longer as nervous and apprehensive as they were before. The skeletons that had once been difficult for them to deal with now felt particularly familiar. After all, Di Baichen was the true Dark Holy Son, and these skeletons were practically his own people. Thinking back, it was really dangerous here. Fortunately, Ling was there and Hong Zhuang was fine. Shengguan Yingying sighed with lingering fear. If Ling wasn't there, they really wouldn't be interested in doing anything if something happened to Bailey Hongzhuang. Speaking of which, are Ling and Yan Che still cultivating in seclusion? Xiren couldn't help but ask. Ling is of the light attribute, and she's also a dragon. If she appears in this training ground, she'll be a beacon of light, so she doesn't plan to come out. It won't be too late for her to come out after we leave the training ground. Then what about Yan Che? Shengguan Yingying asked doubtfully. Yan Che has two attributes. He's busy cultivating, but since Ling came out, he should also come out. As soon as they appear, they'll be arguing non-stop. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and sighed. In the past, it was Xiao He and Xiao Bai who were chattering non-stop, but these two little guys were still of one mind most of the time. However, Bai Li Yan Che and Ling were different. These two were completely a pair of enemies and they would fight no matter what. Actually, she felt that it was pretty good for these two to stay in the Chaos Ring. Haha, actually, I think it's very lively like this. Shengguan Yingying looked excited. It's so fun. You just want to see the world burn, Xiren said. Actually, it's probably because Ling always bullied Yan Che before he transformed into a human, so he decided to turn the tables on her after he transformed into a human. That's why he ended up like this. Di Baichen spread out his hands. Back then, Ling's cultivation was the highest, and she had also transformed into a human form. It could be said that she looked down on the four beasts, which was why this situation had occurred. Yan Che is now cultivating with all his might because he wants to catch up to Ling's cultivation. Although Yan Che used to be very serious in his cultivation, I feel that he's even more hardworking now. Baichen, you're telling the truth? When Xiren agreed. Yan Che is a man after all. He's always being suppressed by Ling. Of course he's unhappy. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the two men who thought alike, and a trace of helplessness appeared in her black eyes. Perhaps this was a man's characteristic. Even Xiao Xuanzi was now cultivating with all his might, so that he could transform into a human as soon as possible. Let's go. The scope of this training ground is not small. It'll take some time to get out. Di Baichen looked ahead. He had stayed here for so long in the past, so he was quite familiar with the terrain. After the skeleton army noticed the sudden appearance of Di Baichen's group of four, they immediately locked onto them and waved their weapons, wanting to attack. Dark energy surged out from Di Baichen's body. Immediately after, the skeletons that were about to attack stopped and bowed respectfully to Di Baichen, as if submitting to him. A wide road quietly appeared. The originally scattered skeleton army now stood on both sides like guards. Their postures were straight and solemn as they watched Di Baichen's group leave. Chapter 55-26. Although Shengguan Yingying already knew that Di Baichen was a dark attribute cultivator and the skeleton army would definitely not attack him, the battle formation in front of her was still beyond her expectations. The skeleton army she had seen in the past was baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. This was the first time she had seen such a spectacular scene. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes also lit up after seeing this scene. It seemed that Di Baichen's dark power had improved quite a bit during this period. I suddenly feel a little depressed. Why am I not a dark attribute cultivator? When Xiren looked annoyed. The scene in front of him was really too eye-catching. Other things aside, who would dare to cause trouble when he went out with a group of skeleton guards? I think so too. Shengguan Yingying pouted, her eyes full of envy. The dark attribute is still shameful in the upper realm. You guys have it easy. What's more, cultivate well. Every attribute is very powerful. Di Baichen smiled faintly. Anyway, you're already a dark attribute cultivator. What are we worried about? When Xiren looked calm. If we're all dark attribute cultivators, we can fight side by side with you. Even if you're not, you can't run away from fighting side by side. Di Baichen raised his lips and smiled faintly. Let's go. There's still a while to go from here to the teleportation formation. Let's go. The four of them quickened their pace. Without the obstruction of the skeleton army, everyone's speed was extremely fast. After leaving the teleportation formation to the upper realm for some distance, the four of them began to meet other cultivators. Noticing the familiar clothes on these cultivators, the four of them showed sighing smiles at the same time. Back then they also wore the clothes of Penglai Palace and formed a team to train here. Now this training ground was no longer a threat to them. Look, they came out from the center of the skeleton army without any injuries. A cultivator noticed Di Baichen and the other three who were strolling leisurely and could not help but exclaim. One should know that the area ahead was a forbidden area in their opinion. They absolutely could not go there. Almost all the cultivators who went there had a slim chance of survival. So far, no cultivator had even made it out alive. However, not only did they see it today, but the other party also came and went from the middle as if it was his own backyard. There was no sense of nervousness at all. This made him wonder if he had seen wrongly. Hearing this cultivator's words, everyone quickly turned their gazes. As expected, they saw 4 cultivators that they had never seen before. Most importantly, the attire of these 4 cultivators did not belong to any of the 3 major forces. This was the strangest part. Where did they come from? Isn't it said that only the cultivators from the 3 major powers can come to the training grounds? The other cultivator could not help but be dumbfounded. This situation was truly beyond their understanding. Look, they're about to leave. Should we follow them and take a look? Staying in this training ground, everyone's spirit was always tense, in case the skeleton army appeared at any time. However, although the 4 cultivators did not show anything, it was clear from their indifferent expressions that the training ground did not seem to be a threat to them. Chapter 55-27. As one of the cultivators suggested this idea, the other cultivators also chimed in one after another. In fact, they had already planned to go back, but the night was too dangerous and they had to be more vigilant. Therefore, they planned to stay here for one more night and leave after dawn. However, after seeing these 4 cultivators, they changed their minds. Those guys seem to be following us? Shangguan Yingying noticed the movements of some cultivators behind her and could not help but frown. Logically speaking, they were just passing by. The other party should not want to attack them, right? Judging from their clothes, they are from Penglai Palace. If they are not causing trouble for us, then forget it. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. They were the inner disciples of Penglai Palace after all. They were from the same sect. Naturally, they could not attack their fellow disciples. Shangguan Yingying nodded slightly. That's true. However, I just don't understand why they want to follow us. Maybe you are too beautiful, so they want to follow you and take a good look. Xiren joked. Although he did not understand why these cultivators were following them, it did not affect his good mood. Once again they returned to the lower realm. Even though there was still a long distance to the outside world, with their speed, it would not be long before they could reunite with their loved ones. When he thought of his old man, he felt very expectant. Back then, his old man wanted to drive him out all day long so that he could broaden his horizons. Now, he had really broadened his horizons. However, after not seeing him for so long, his old man must be very worried about him. Hearing Xiren's words, Shangguan Yingying nodded seriously. That's right. I believe what you said is the truth. Xiao He could not help but cover her eyes. This really stung her eyes. Xiao He, what do you mean by this? Shangguan Yingying's face suddenly darkened. This little furball did not give her any face. Nothing. My eyes just hurt a little. Do you want me to ravage your little head again? No. Xiao He quickly waved her hand. Sister Yingying, you are gentle, beautiful, and generous. How could you do such a cruel thing to me? Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows. Then I'll reluctantly let you go. However, while they were joking and walking, Di Baichen's expression suddenly became serious. The skeleton army is about to appear. Pay attention to your feet. Hearing that, Shangguan Yingying and the others stopped joking. They needed to be careful with the sudden appearance of the whole. There was no need to worry about Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen, but if the 2 of them were to fall, even with their current strength, they would not end up well. As expected, after Di Baichen's reminder, the ground suddenly became soft. Holes appeared one after another, and the skeleton army quickly emerged from the ground like bamboo shoots after the rain. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had expected this. Although they dodged the attack immediately, the cultivators who had been following them were not so lucky. Chapter 55-28. Noticing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others who had been calmly preparing to leave, could not help but pause in their footsteps. They stared at the cultivators behind them who had been caught off guard and could lose their lives at any time. The 4 of them then sighed quietly before flying away. After all, they were all members of the Penglai Palace. They could not leave them to die. One of the cultivators watched as he was about to fall into the pit and never get out again. A thick sense of despair appeared on his face. After being in the training ground for so long, he had long understood that once he falls into the pit, he would not even have a corpse left. Even though cultivators would fall in this environment every time, he had always felt that his luck was pretty good and that he would not end up in such a miserable state. However, he never thought that this would happen to him in the end. Just as he closed his eyes and was about to accept his fate, a powerful force suddenly grabbed his hand. He then felt his body fly through the air and leaped out of the pit. This force was even more shocking than the force in the pit. He could not resist it at all. When he opened his eyes again, he realized that he was already standing on flat ground and had left the area where the skeleton army had been. It was not only him, the other cultivators were also standing on the spot in a daze. This sudden situation had completely exceeded their expectations. They had been so close to death, yet they had suddenly come back to life. This made them feel as if they had fallen into a dream. They simply could not believe that this was all real. Their gazes shifted slightly, and they, who were still in a state of shock, suddenly realized that the 4 people whom they had been following were rescuing people in the area where the skeleton army had appeared. They saw that the 4 figures were like a whirlwind as they shuttled through the skeleton army without any pressure. They then rescued the cultivators who had been surrounded by the skeleton army one by one. It was only at this moment that they realized that the great force they had felt earlier was the power of these cultivators. Heavens, they are so powerful. With this level of cultivation, they have no fear of the skeleton army at all. It's no wonder that they could walk out from the center of the pit. What terrifying power. Even the palace master's powers may not be a match for them, right? A cultivator looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 with admiration. He couldn't help but compare them with the hall master. Hearing this cultivator's guess, the others looked at each other. I've never seen the hall master's strength before, so I don't know either. Anyway, I know that he's definitely stronger than teacher. That's right. We were tailing them earlier, and they were actually willing to save us. Everyone felt a wave of shame in their hearts. Previously, they had only chosen to follow him because they were too curious and wanted to know his identity. However, they also understood that the other party must have known of their existence. The only thing they didn't expect was that the other party would be so magnanimous and willing to save them despite knowing that they were following them. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 were very fast. In the blink of an eye, they had rescued everyone who was surrounded by the skeleton army. Thank you, benefactor, for saving us. The frightened crowd hurriedly cupped their hands to express their gratitude. Be careful, Bailey Hongzhuang said calmly. Yes. Shengguan Yingying looked at the group of cultivators in front of her and asked with a frown, speaking of which, why are you following us? Chapter 55-29. After a long while, a man braced himself and stood up. He said with some embarrassment, actually, we just saw our benefactors appear from the center of the training ground. We felt that your strength must be very strong. In addition, we originally planned to go back, so we wanted to go back with you. As soon as the cultivator finished speaking, the other cultivators nodded in agreement. That's right. That's our plan. Hearing this, Shengguan Yingying looked at everyone suspiciously but did not say anything. As for whether she believed this explanation or not, only she would know. Everyone looked nervously at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. They did not know if the other party believed what they had said. If they did not believe it, with the strength of these 4 people, killing them would be no different from killing a grasshopper. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not take this matter to heart. Therefore, they did not care too much about the other party's explanation. It's not far from dawn. Be careful, we're leaving. After leaving this sentence, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen turned around and left with them. As disciples of the same sect, they had already done their utmost benevolence by doing this. At the next moment, without waiting for anyone to speak, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 had already disappeared into the skeleton army. In the blink of an eye, they had disappeared. Looking at the 4 people who had disappeared in front of them, the remaining cultivators looked at each other in dismay. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. They actually rushed into the army of skeletons just like that. Am I seeing things? One of them rubbed his eyes. He only felt that his eyes must be playing tricks on him. Until now, he had never heard of anyone who dared to rush into the skeleton army so boldly. No, you're not seeing things. I saw it too. What kind of strength is this? I also wish that I could become so strong. Everyone looked envious, but their hearts were filled with curiosity. This kind of strong cultivator should not be a nameless person. The speed of Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 was very fast. In the eyes of others, it was extremely difficult to gain experience, but for them, it was like walking on flat ground. Whether it was day or night, everyone's speed was not the least bit delayed. A few days later, the four of them finally arrived at the teleportation array. Looking at the familiar teleportation array, the four of them couldn't help but smile. Once they left Penglai Island, they would be able to return home. After entering the teleportation formation, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three appeared directly in the area of Penglai Palace. Usually, there were many cultivators gathered near the teleportation array. At this moment, four strangers suddenly appeared. The cultivators of Penglai Palace could not help but be stunned. Who are these people? Why did you appear in our Penglai Palace? They aren't wearing the uniforms of our Penglai Palace. Could it be that they are from the other two forces? At the thought of this, the gazes of the cultivators turned gloomy as they looked at the four of them. The battle between the three major forces had not changed for so many years. There were people from other forces who dared to come to their territory so blatantly. If they did not teach them a lesson, wouldn't it weaken the reputation of Penglai Palace? Feeling the hostile gazes around him, Xiren couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. It's only been a few years since we left this place and no one knows us anymore? Chapter 55:30. You're right, but how should we deal with the situation in front of us? Shengguan Yingying raised her eyebrows. The cultivators around them seemed to treat them as enemies. It looked like they wanted to teach them a lesson. Are you afraid of them? Di Beichen chuckled. Of course I'm not afraid, but if we hurt them, we won't be able to explain it to Long Yanwei, right? Xiren had a faint smile on his face. In this Penglai Palace they were most familiar with Long Yanwei. Their contract beasts were all thanks to Long Yanwei. Without him they would not have been able to have contract beasts. Long Yanwei was indeed the best contract master in Penglai Island. Even in the upper realm their contract beasts were not weak at all. Haha, Xiren is right. Shengguan Yingying could not help but laugh out loud. With their current strength, even if these cultivators ganged up on them, it would not affect them at all. When the difference in strength between the two sides was too great, even numbers could not change all of this. Just as many cultivators were planning to teach Di Beichen and the other three a lesson, suddenly a cultivator recognized them. No. They are our inner disciples. The man looked at Di Beichen and the other three in shock. His memory quickly overlapped. Although Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three stayed in Penglai Palace for a short time, the commotion they caused could be said to be unique. They had only joined Penglai Palace not long ago, but they were directly promoted from outer disciples to inner disciples. The most important thing was that so many disciples ganged up on them at that time. Everyone was sure that they would lose, but they did not expect them to break through and seriously injure hundreds of cultivators. It could be said that they became famous in one battle. As the cultivator's voice fell, everyone was stunned and doubts appeared on their faces. Is it true? I'm definitely not mistaken. This woman is Bailey Hongzhuang, the one who developed the drug to resist the dark power. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang was the #1 beauty in Penglai Palace. Any man who saw her would not be able to forget that stunning face. If everyone did not believe that everything the man said was true before, then when he mentioned Bailey Hongzhuang, everyone's expression suddenly changed. Bailey Hongzhuang in this Penglai Palace could be said to be famous. Because Bailey Hongzhuang developed this drug powder and offered it to Penglai Palace, Penglai Palace's position in Penglai Island became more stable. Although Penglai Palace once was slightly better of the three forces, 100 Flowers and Red Moon Sect always wanted to take the opportunity to surpass them. Since this incident happened, 100 Flowers and Red Moon Sect had given up this idea. However, they only stayed in Penglai Palace for a short period of time before disappearing. Many disciples who came later regretted that they did not see the real faces of the two. However, no one expected Bailey Hongzhuang to suddenly reappear after disappearing for such a long time. Moreover, she appeared directly at the teleportation array. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had been in the training ground all this time? Chapter 55:31. Senior brother, you're not mistaken, are you? Is she really Bailey Hongzhuang? Don't worry, I'm definitely not mistaken. After the first man recognized them, several cultivators also recognized the identities of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. That's right, it's them. I didn't expect them to actually come back. Everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. Compared to before, the aura of these four people had changed quite a bit. In the past, they didn't look like ordinary people, but now, just by standing there, they gave people an incomparably powerful feeling. Even if they didn't know their strength, a sense of fear had already arisen in their hearts. Even the palace master couldn't compare to this kind of aura. For a moment, The cultivators who were familiar with the situation of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three also secretly pondered in their hearts. It had only been a short few years. What exactly happened to Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three? Why did they improve so much in such a short period of time? Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three walked down from the teleportation device and slowly walked forward under the shocked and admiring gazes of the crowd. Although we've been away for a while, this Penglai Palace is still the same as before. There's not much change. Shengguan Yingying looked around. Everything in front of her felt very familiar. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. Indeed, should we go and see Master Long? He helped us a lot back then. Di Beichen thought about it and nodded. Since we're already here, let's make a trip. Back then, Long Yanwei paid a great price to recruit them to Penglai Palace. Moreover, after they came, Long Yanwei took care of them in every possible way. Now that they were here, if they didn't pay him a visit, it would be too unreasonable. I don't know if he still treats the monster egg as a treasure like he did back then, and I don't know if the palace master still has his eyes on the monster egg. As if recalling the interesting scenes from back then, Xiren's voice was light and full of interest. Every time he saw Long Yanwei's distressed look, he found it particularly interesting. If that's the case, what are we waiting for? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Let's go. The four of them walked towards Long Yanwei's residence with ease and familiarity. Along the way they also encountered many strange gazes. Whenever some new cultivators showed hostility, there were always some cultivators who knew Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three who stopped them. At the same time, the news of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's return also quickly spread throughout the Penglai Palace. Have you heard? Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen are back. Don't lie to me. They left the Penglai Palace long ago. How could they come back? I'm not lying to you. If you don't believe me, you can go out and ask around. The news has already spread far and wide. Almost all the cultivators were extremely shocked when they heard the news. They all ran out, wanting to see what the two legendary figures looked like. Long Yanwei was originally inside the house looking at his newly sealed pet beast when he suddenly heard a commotion outside. He couldn't help but frown. Did something big happen today? Why is it so noisy outside? With his status in the Penglai Palace generally, no one dared to disturb him. Of course, except for Bailey Hongzhuang and the other four. Chapter 55-32. Long Yanwei could not help but recall the five figures from back then. Speaking of which, he had stayed in the Penglai Palace for quite some time, but the ones who had left the deepest impression on him were Di Beichen's group of five. That was the first time he had taken the initiative to recruit someone, and he had paid an unimaginable price for it. However, later on, he had realized that it had been the most worthwhile transaction. It was because of his decision back then that his position in the Penglai Palace had improved by quite a bit. He never thought that Di Beichen's identity would be so shocking. He was the son of an aristocratic family from the upper realm. At the same time, because of this identity, his position had also improved by quite a bit. If it was possible, Long Yanwei would like to have the opportunity to meet him again. However, he knew very well that it was almost impossible for them to meet again. People from the upper realm would usually not return. Even though Di Beichen's identity was honorable and he might be able to return, there was no point in him returning. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out from outside the door. Lord Long, are you there? Long Yanwei furrowed his brows when he heard this voice. A look of astonishment flashed across his eyes. Could it be that I've heard wrongly? Why does this voice sound so much like Bailey Hongzhuang's voice? Long Yanwei opened the door with disbelief in his heart. However, when he saw the four familiar figures in front of him, a thick look of astonishment appeared in his eyes. He stared fixedly at the four of them. After confirming that his eyes were not playing tricks on him, he realized that the four of them had really returned. A thick look of surprise instantly appeared on his face. Why have you returned? Long Yanwei, who was still in the midst of his surprise, could not help but ask. He never thought that he would actually meet Di Beichen and the others again. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but chuckle when they saw Long Yanwei's shocked look. Why can't we return? Could it be that you don't want us to return, Lord Long? Of course not. Long Yanwei quickly replied, I'm just too surprised to see you. Long Yanwei then looked behind Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. When he realized that there was no sign of Mo Yunjue, he could not help but frown. Previously, the five of them had always been together. Why were there only four of them now? Noticing the doubt unconsciously revealed between Long Yanwei's brows, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already guessed his thoughts. They immediately explained with a smile, Yunju is still training, so he didn't come back with us this time. Hearing this, Long Yanwei finally understood. So that's how it is. Come in and have a seat. Long Yanwei invited with a face full of smiles. It's such a pleasant surprise to see you again. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three entered the house, Long Yanwei closed the door. There were still many cultivators outside the house who stretched their necks, wanting to see what was going on. He was also quite helpless. Master Long, you're still as good-tempered as ever. Xiren smiled faintly. If it were any other instructor, ordinary disciples would not dare to be so brazen. Come to think of it, only Long Yanwei would dare to be so impudent. Actually, they're very simple. Back then, didn't you guys have no scruples at all when you were with me? Long Yanwei raised his eyebrows. He remembered very clearly that Xiren, this brat, liked to take advantage of others the most. Haha, these words. We're so embarrassed. Chapter 55-33. Seeing that Long Yanwei had already seen through him, Xiren did not care. Instead, his smile became even more brilliant. After not seeing each other for such a long time, everything was still the same as before when they met again. This feeling also made him miss it very much. Not only Xiren but Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two also had the same feeling. The long-lost sense of familiarity made them feel particularly close. What do you want to do this time? Long Yanwei's face was full of smiles. He was happy from the bottom of his heart to be able to see the four familiar people again. Perhaps they met each other for various purposes in the beginning, but as they became familiar with each other, they had become true friends. What made him happy was that even though Di Beichen's identity was so noble, he could still get along with him like before. He was very clear about how rare this was. Being in the high position of Penglai Palace, he had met countless people of all shapes and sizes. Many people had forgotten their former friends after they had some ability. He had seen too many things about various forces. Fortunately, he had never misjudged Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. These four people had never been people who would forget righteousness at the sight of profit, and they would not change their faces because of the change in their identity. Previously, I went to the upper realm because of an accident. I have not contacted my family for so long. This time, I finally have time, so I plan to go back and see my family, and then bring them to the upper realm together. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with bright joy. After waiting for so long, she was finally back. When she thought that she would be able to go back and see her family soon, she was overjoyed. She could not wait to return to the Lan family and Tiangang sect immediately. She remembered that she had spent such a long time to be able to reunite with her parents, but she did not expect that they would be separated again after such a short time. She hoped that after bringing her parents to the upper realm this time, they would be able to be together often in the future. I see. Long Yanwei suddenly understood and could not help but sigh in his heart. Only Di Beichen's wife would have the courage to say such a thing. Otherwise, if it was an ordinary person, wanting to enter the upper realm was already more difficult than ascending to the heavens, let alone wanting to bring their loved ones up together. However, in this world, the strong were respected. Order was often used to make the weak abide by it. The strong were the ones who broke the rules. Speaking of which, although I've known about the existence of the upper realm for a long time, I still don't know what it looks like. Possible, can you tell me about the upper realm? Long Yanwei revealed a look of anticipation. Not to mention him, even the palace master did not know much about the upper realm. He was also very curious about the existence of a higher plane. Noticing Long Yanwei's expectant look, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three couldn't help but smile at each other. For many people who did not know about the upper realm, it was best not to speak about it. However, Long Yanwei already knew about it, so it did not matter if he learned a little more about it. Master Long, in the past it was always us asking questions and you explaining. I didn't expect that there would be a time when you would ask us questions, when Xiren joked with a smile. Once upon a time, they had always wanted to understand the true situation of the upper realm from Long Yanwei. Chapter 55-34. Haha, no. Seeing Long Yanwei rolling his eyes at him, Xiren quickly waved his hand, but the teasing look on his face was still obvious. Are you going to tell me or not? Long Yanwei said in annoyance. I'll tell you. Xiren nodded. How can we not tell you what Master Long wants to know? In fact, the upper realm is not much different from Penglai Island. It's just that the area is bigger and there are more powerhouses. Of course, the most important thing is that the cultivation method of the upper realm is fundamentally different from that of the lower realm, Di Beichen slowly explained. Long Yanwei was surprised. The cultivation method is different? Then how do they cultivate? We cultivate pure elemental energy. After reaching the astral boundary, we will awaken our own attributes and begin to cultivate elemental energy. Di Baichen and the others did not hold back. Long Yanwei was their benefactor. No matter what he wanted to know, they were willing to explain it to him. Xiren even told him some of the interesting things that happened in the upper realm. All of this was tantamount to opening a new door for Long Yanwei. Many things that he had never touched or even imagined before appeared before his eyes. The once ethereal and illusory things gradually became clearer at this moment. So the upper realm is actually like this. This is really interesting. Long Yanwei could not help but sigh. This world was really amazing. If Di Baichen had not told him about it, he was afraid that he would not have been able to figure all this out. Master Long, with your strength, it's not a problem to enter the upper realm. Why don't you consider going to the upper realm? Xiren could not help but ask after noticing Long Yanwei's interest in the upper realm. He clearly saw the expectation and yearning on the latter's face, but he did not know why Long Yanwei would choose to stay here. It was really strange. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at Long Yanwei when they heard this. They also noticed this from his expression and could not help but feel a little puzzled. They originally thought that Long Yanwei had chosen to stay in Penglai Palace because it was more comfortable here. Not everyone wanted to go to a higher level. Sometimes, choosing to stay in a place that was suitable for oneself was not necessarily a bad thing. This was because everyone had their own pursuits and these pursuits were often different. However, it seemed that the real situation was somewhat different from what they had imagined. Long Yanwei was silent for a moment and said, I promised the palace master that I would help him strengthen the Penglai Palace. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally understood. In the past, they already knew that Long Yanwei had an extremely good relationship with the hall master. Even if the hall master had extorted him every time, Long Yanwei had never bothered about it. Similarly, Penglai Palace's status on Penglai Island was inseparable from Long Yanwei. However, they did not expect that there was an even deeper relationship between Long Yanwei and the palace master. Lord Long, the days are long. If you change your mind and want to go to the upper realm in the future, you can contact us at any time. Di Baichen smiled faintly. He had always admired people who had their own perseverance. As a contractor of Long Yanwei's level, even if he went to the upper realm, he would still be an existence that attracted attention. Hearing Di Baichen's words, Long Yanwei smiled faintly and then nodded. If I go to the upper realm, I will definitely look for you. Chapter 55-35. Just as Di Baichen and the others were chatting happily, there was a sudden rush of footsteps outside the door. The five of them stopped talking and turned to look outside the house. Although they did not see anyone, they already had a guess in their hearts. Yanwei, I heard all the disciples say that Di Baichen and the others have returned as soon as I came back today. Is this true? Yizihua and Bai Cangming strode into the house. Their usually calm faces were now filled with anxiety. However, as soon as the two of them entered, they saw the four familiar faces. Immediately, the anxiety on their faces disappeared and was replaced by a strong sense of surprise. I didn't expect it to be true. You're really back. Yizihua raised his voice, and his handsome face was filled with amazement. Hall Master Instructor Yi, long time no see. The four of them stood up with smiles on their faces. I really didn't expect that we would have the chance to meet again. Bai Cangming's black eyes were filled with amazement. He had rushed over as soon as he heard the news. Di Baichen had the best relationship with Long Yanwei back in Penglai Palace. If he really came back, he would definitely come here. Along the way, he had also heard many cultivators discussing this matter. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, he could not help but be stunned. Haha, we already knew that we would meet again one day, Di Baichen said with a smile. Yizihua sat down beside the group. A few days ago, Yanwei and I were still talking about you. We didn't expect you to appear so soon. You're really telepathic. Talking about what? Shengguan Yingying asked curiously. Speaking of which, it's fortunate that Hong Zhuang left the prescription behind. Otherwise, the disciples would be in trouble if you didn't return, Yizihua said with a smile. Indeed. Bai Cangming nodded. The prescription that Hong Zhuang left behind really helped everyone. Now everyone in Penglai Palace remembers your name. Because of the prescription, Penglai Palace's status is now one level higher than before. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to you. Until now, he couldn't help but sigh at how generous Bailey Hongzhuang was. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely not hand over the prescription so easily. However, Bailey Hongzhuang handed it over just like that, and they did not even need to say anything. That's all thanks to Hongzhuang. Di Beichen smiled faintly. We are also very happy to see that the status of Penglai Palace has improved. It's not just Hong Zhuang's credit. Bai Cangming looked at Di Beichen seriously. It's also your credit. Di Beichen was slightly stunned when he heard Bai Cangming's words. He didn't understand what Bai Cangming meant. When you went missing, your father ruthlessly taught those people from the Crimson Moon sect a lesson. In just one night, those guys have been completely erased from this world. Bai Cangming sighed emotionally as he looked at Di Beichen. Even he couldn't help but sigh at such methods. Although it was your father who did it, the Crimson Moon sect's power suffered a huge blow after they disappeared, which indirectly helped us. Once he said that, everyone finally understood. That's right. That was indeed the case back then. Xiren nodded slightly. It was also because of that incident that he understood how much Di Yujua valued Di Beichen. Chapter 55-36. I see. Di Beichen's expression was calm, but he couldn't help but feel touched. Ever since he returned to the clan, he had felt his father's love. No matter when, his father would support his decision unconditionally. Even if he didn't see that scene with his own eyes, he could imagine what it would be like. By the way, when you left, Wang Yanling also went with you. Did you meet him? Yizihua couldn't help but ask. As a mentor, Wang Yanling was undoubtedly his favorite student. However, Wang Yanling was wholeheartedly looking for his brother, so he didn't ask him to stay. There was always a regret in his heart that he didn't know how all the disciples who left were doing now. In the upper realm, where there were many strong people, no one knew if they could adapt. Senior brother Ling is doing well. We even went to see him when we came back this time, Bailey Hongzhuang replied. Originally, Yizihua was just asking casually and didn't have any hope at all. However, when he suddenly heard such an unexpected answer, he couldn't help but be stunned. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and didn't even react. On the other hand, Long Yanwei's face was full of interest. It's said that this teleportation is random. You actually happened to meet each other? When we went to the upper realm, we went with senior brother Ling, Xiren said with a smile. I see. Yizihua suddenly understood. That's right. You left on the same day. I didn't think of this. Not only that, the most coincidental thing is that Hong Zhuang met senior brother Wan Yanhan in the upper realm. They are now together, Shengguan Yingying added. Hearing this news, Bai Cangming's face was also full of surprise. That's great. They are very outstanding cultivators in our Penglai Palace. We can rest assured that they are doing well in the upper realm. Your return this time really brought us a lot of good news. Long Yanwei chuckled. This feeling was simply like seeing a family member return. I was so happy. For a moment, the room was filled with joy and harmony. Everyone exchanged greetings. The palace master who was once high and mighty in their eyes was now no different from a friend. By the way, why did you come back this time? After chatting for a while, Bai Cangming couldn't help but ask with concern, do you need our help? They came back this time to bring their loved ones back to the upper realm. This is a joyous occasion. I'm afraid they won't need your help, Long Yanwei said with a faint smile. Indeed. Bai Cangming nodded slightly. It's not easy to make a trip back from the upper dimension. Since it's possible, it's undoubtedly the best choice to bring our loved ones over. Speaking of which, I'm reminded of something interesting. Yizihua chuckled inexplicably as if he had thought of something very funny. What interesting thing? After you left, your deeds gradually spread and then some people came out and claimed to be your relatives. In the beginning, many people really believed it. However, as more and more people impersonated them, they realized that it was all fake. It caused quite a stir at that time. It's interesting just thinking about it. Chapter 55-37. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 looked at each other in dismay. They really didn't expect such a situation to occur. When they first appeared, many people were deceived and wanted to use them to form a relationship with you. But speaking of which, those fellows' acting skills were indeed not bad. They also made up a set of stories. No wonder so many people believed them. Then what about now? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows and couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Cultivators nowadays were really flexible. In order to obtain benefits, it wasn't a big deal for them to make up lies. After someone was exposed, the situation took a turn for the better. Because no one believed them, gradually no one used this method to deceive others, said Long Yanwei. That's good. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. She didn't want to have so many relatives for no reason. Speaking of which, recently, there was someone who claimed to be your father. But what was his name again? Yizihua frowned as he pondered. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed. He claimed to be my father? Yizihua nodded. That's right. Actually, there were people who claimed to be your uncle or aunt. But he was the only one who claimed to be your father. Even if it was a story, this identity was too intimate. It was because of this that I understood this person's situation. But for a moment I've forgotten his name. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other as a guess emerged in their minds. Suddenly Di Beichen asked, "Is he called Lan Yunxiao?" Yizihua widened his eyes and nodded. That's right. It's Lan Yunxiao. Long Yanwei and Bai Tsangming, who were originally joking, couldn't help but straighten their expressions. They realized that the situation was different from what they had imagined. How do you know this name? Yizihua looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in a daze. He can't really be your father, right? My father is Lan Yunxiao. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was serious. She was certain that this person was her father. They had not returned for so long. With his father's temperament, it was very likely that he would come to Penglai Island to look for him. After hearing this affirmative answer, Long Yanwei and the other two also became serious. Heavens! Uncle actually came to Penglai Island. Shengguan Yingying exclaimed. This was beyond her expectations. Yizihua was also a little embarrassed. Previously there were too many people pretending to be your relatives, so we didn't take it to heart. Even though I was a little surprised when I heard that he claimed to be your father, I thought that he was just trying to win by surprise. After all, the two of you weren't here, so no one knew whether he was telling the truth or not. I didn't expect this to be true. Is my father still in Penglai Island? Bailey Hongzhuang stood up. Her white face was full of seriousness and tension. In her heart, her father had always been an existence that could hold up the sky. However, as she grew up, she understood that there were too many dangers in the outside world. Even his father had to be careful. Zihua, do you know? Long Yanwei looked at Yizihua. He usually did not care much about such things, so he did not understand. Chapter 55-38. Why don't you sit here and wait for me? I'll go and find out what's going on. I'll be back very soon. Yizihua's expression was serious. Since the other party was Bailey Hongzhuang's father, he naturally had to be careful. All right, then we'll have to trouble Teacher Yi. Di Beichen replied. In the next moment Yizihua quickly left. Bailey Hongzhuang remained standing at the same spot with a frown. Her peerless face was filled with unconcealable worry. Even if Yizihua didn't say anything from his expression, Bailey Hongzhuang could see a lot of things. Something important? Bailey Hongzhuang instinctively sensed that this was probably not something good. Otherwise Yizihua would not have looked so nervous. Wife, sit down first. Don't worry. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and gestured for her not to be nervous. However, his heart ached when he felt the coldness of her hand. Don't worry, father will be fine. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang returned to her senses. She nodded blankly and sat there quietly. Countless thoughts still surfaced in her mind. The originally lively atmosphere suddenly quieted down. Long Yanwei and Bai Tsangming looked at each other and felt a little guilty. Bailey Hongzhuang had helped them so much. They should do their best to take care of her family. However, they did not expect that they did not even know the truth of the situation. They really should not have done that. Yizihua was very fast. After understanding the situation, he quickly rushed back. I've understood it clearly. There's an arranged battle between your father and Crimson Moon Sect's teacher Yan Haoguang today. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately stood up when she heard this. Her delicate face was filled with seriousness and malice. When is it? It's agreed to be held at noon. It'll start soon. Where is it? Di Beichen hurriedly asked. It's on Crimson Moon Island where the Crimson Moon Sect is located. Let's go now. Di Beichen's eyes narrowed. The Crimson Moon Sect again. Back then there was a conflict with the Crimson Moon Sect. After the Crimson Moon Sect was taught a lesson, their strength had been greatly affected. If it was not for Di Yujue's agreement between the upper realm and lower realm, the Crimson Moon Sect would have ceased to exist. However, the Crimson Moon Sect had now dared to oppose his father. They were really digging their own graves. Bailey Hongzhuang. The teachers of the Crimson Moon Sect would not be weak. This battle would not be simple. Just as Bai Tsangming was thinking about how to hurry, Di Beichen had already taken out a flying magic tool. Seeing that Di Beichen and the other three had already entered, Bai Tsangming and the other two did not delay and hurriedly followed. Di Beichen activated the flying device immediately. There was quite a distance between the Crimson Moon Island and Penglai Island. If they hurried like before, the competition would have ended by the time they arrived. However, with this flying magic tool, their speed would undoubtedly be much faster. Feeling the flying device's speed, Bai Zongming and the other two were shocked. They had never seen such a treasure before. Is this a flying device? Bai Zongming looked at the flying car and could not help but ask. Chapter 55-39. After receiving an affirmative answer, Bai Zongming sighed in his heart. As the palace master of Penglai Palace, he naturally knew more about the situation than the others. However, he had only heard of such a rare treasure and had never seen it before. He never thought that he would have the opportunity to sit on a flying instrument. Similarly, from this, it could be seen that Di Baichen's position in the Di family was not simple. Instructor E, can you tell me more about the Crimson Moon Sect's instructor? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Yi Zihua. She did not know why her father would have a grudge with this person. However, based on her father's character, he would not easily get into a conflict with others. No problem. Yi Zihua nodded. Yan Haoguang is a Crimson Moon Sect's instructor and his position in the Crimson Moon Sect is not simple. I have interacted with him before. He is a little arrogant because of his abilities and has always thought highly of himself. Therefore he is not very popular. However, at the same time he is indeed very powerful. That is why he is able to secure his position in the Crimson Moon Sect. From what I know, the reason why your father got into a conflict with him this time was because of a man named Yu Linfeng. Yu Linfeng? Shengguan Yingying was stunned. Isn't that Hongzhuang's master? He is Hongzhuang's master. Yi Zihua was also shocked. Di Baichen nodded. That's right. He is Hongzhuang's master. I believe that they came together this time. That makes sense. It seems that Yu Linfeng got into a conflict with Yan Haoguang and was severely injured by Yan Haoguang. Your father wanted to avenge Yu Linfeng, so he arranged a battle with him. My master is severely injured? Bailey Hongzhuang's face suddenly darkened, and her fan-like eyelashes cast a shadow, blocking the bloodthirsty killing intent in her eyes. She was already extremely unhappy with the Crimson Moon Sect. How dare they plot against her? Now, a mere instructor had actually dared to injure her master. Since they dared to touch her reverse scale, she would definitely kill them. The atmosphere suddenly dropped to the freezing point. Everyone could feel the murderous intent in Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Indeed. Yi Zihua nodded. He did not feel that Bailey Hongzhuang's behavior was inappropriate. If it were any other cultivator, knowing that someone they cared about was seriously injured, they would probably have the same reaction. My father-in-law's strength shouldn't be too different from master's. Did he take the initiative to challenge Yan Haoguang? Di Baichen frowned. His bright black eyes shone with wisdom. According to his understanding, his father-in-law would not do such a thing. Bai Zongming and Long Yanwei also raised their heads. If the two of them were equally matched, it proved that Lan Yunxiao wasn't Yan Haoguang's opponent either. If he didn't have a reason, he wouldn't have done such a suicidal thing. It's said that he was forced to do so. That Yan Haoguang clearly wants to kill them. After Yu Linfeng was severely injured, Lan Yunxiao planned to take him away. He didn't expect the Crimson Moon Sect's cultivators to stop them from leaving. They also stopped all the doctors from treating him. Unless Lan Yunxiao defeats Yan Haoguang, he won't let them leave. Bang! The table at the side was directly shattered into powder by Bailey Hongzhuang's palm. Bailey Hongzhuang could no longer suppress the anger in her chest. Bastard. Chapter 55-40. Shengguan Yingying couldn't help but explode. There was actually such a shameless person who relied on his power to bully others. Whether it was Lan Yunxiao or Yu Linfeng, they were both people who could call the wind and summon the rain in the outside world. But here they were bullied like this. It was too hateful. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was bleeding. If it weren't for them being worried, her father and master wouldn't have specially come here. Naturally, they wouldn't be treated like this. That's right, Yan Haoguang and Yu Linfeng first got into a conflict because Yan Haoguang took a fancy to a girl. However, Yu Linfeng was handsome and was admired by that girl. Yan Haoguang wasn't convinced and found a reason to attack. Yi Zihua was speechless about all of this. Speaking of which, all of this wasn't related to Yu Linfeng and Lan Yunxiao. It was just that Yan Haoguang failed in his pursuit and wanted to find someone to vent his frustrations. It was truly depressing. After hearing all of this, Xiren and the rest looked at each other. The resentment in their eyes intensified. They believed in this reason very much. This was because Yu Linfeng's appearance was extraordinarily handsome to begin with. Back when he was in the outside world, who knew how many women adored him? Now that they were on Penglai Island, such a situation couldn't be more normal. I didn't expect that a girl's outstanding appearance would attract trouble. A handsome man would also attract such an undeserved calamity. Bai Tsangming couldn't help but sigh. Just based on the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, he could guess that Lan Yunxiao and the rest were all first-rate handsome men. I always knew that Yin Haoguang wasn't a reasonable person. But now it seems that this fellow is completely arrogant and despotic. He relied on Scarlet Moon Island as Scarlet Moon Sect's territory to do such despicable and shameless things. He's truly too hateful. Long Yanwei's expression also darkened. Usually he looked down on this kind of person the most. Now that it involved Bailey Hongzhuang's family, he was naturally even angrier. Right now he could only hope that nothing happened to Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxiao. Otherwise this matter would truly be troublesome. Wife, I'm already rushing to Scarlet Moon Island at the fastest speed. With the distance between Penglai Island and Scarlet Moon Island, we'll arrive very quickly. Don't worry. Even though he knew that his words wouldn't have much of an effect on Bailey Hongzhuang, he couldn't help but speak up when he noticed her tense expression. Moon. He knew how important her family was to Hongzhuang. She was not afraid of danger or rumors. She could bear with it no matter how others hurt her. But the only thing that she couldn't bear was the people she cared for get hurt. Her. Be. The. It. Word tt. Teat? Do you guys think that Lan Yunxiao will come today? He should come. If he doesn't, then Yu Linfeng won't be able to obtain the antidote. Moreover, they're on Scarlet Moon Island. If Yin Haoguang doesn't want them to leave, they won't have the chance to. Chapter 55-41. As soon as the man finished speaking, the other cultivators nodded their heads in agreement. Everyone knew that this was an undeserved calamity for Lan Yunxiao and Dijio. This was Yin Haoguang's problem, but there were too many unlucky people like him on Penglai Island. Cultivation was related to one's own luck. Any cultivator who could become an expert usually had extremely strong luck. If they didn't have good luck, no matter how outstanding their talent was, they wouldn't be able to reach that height. No one cared about the root of this matter. The weak were destined to be bullied. Speaking of which, didn't Lan Yunxiao claim to be Bailey Hongzhuang's father? Bailey Hongzhuang has made such a great contribution to Penglai Palace. Do you think they will take action? What kind of joke is this? It's no longer the same as before. Everyone knows that Bailey Hongzhuang doesn't have any relatives here. This is all fake news. It's just that Lan Yunxiao claiming to be her father is a bit special. That's true. How outstanding is Di Beichen's father? If Lan Yunxiao really is Bailey Hongzhuang's father, how could he have fallen to such a state on Penglai Island? With just a few words, everyone was certain that this was a lie. As the appointed time approached, a figure slowly walked over like a moon surrounded by stars. The moment he appeared, the entire encirclement erupted with cries of surprise. Everyone's gaze landed on this proud and complacent figure. They saw Yin Haoguang's face beaming with happiness. His slightly bloated face was glowing with oil, as if he was living a very comfortable life. Faced with everyone's sighing gazes, Yin Haoguang took this as an honor and was very happy. Instructor Yin, that Lan Yunxiao still hasn't appeared. I don't know if he's scared out of his wits and doesn't dare to come. A fair-skinned young man standing closest to Yin Haoguang had a flattering smile on his face as he nodded and bowed. That Lan Yunxiao, as long as Instructor Yin makes a move, he won't even have a chance to fight back. It's normal that he doesn't come, another Crimson Moon sect disciple said with a smile. Yin Haoguang glanced at the lively scene in front of him, and a contemptuous smile appeared on his fat face. They're just a few country bumpkins from the outside world. They think that they can do whatever they want here because they're strong in the outside world. However, their thinking is too simple. Our Penglai Island is not comparable to those places in the outside world. That's right. This time, Instructor Yin will make them recognize reality. Yin Haoguang's figure flashed and appeared on the arena. He sat down calmly on one side. A few young disciples behind him were in charge of serving him tea and water. They were very happy to serve him. Yunxiao, don't worry about me. Since everyone is attracted by the tournament today, why don't you take the opportunity to leave Scarlet Moon Island? I'm definitely going to die. You don't have to die with me. Live well. Maybe you'll have a chance to avenge me in the future. Yu Linfeng's face was pale. His originally handsome face was now covered in a layer of purple due to the poison. His face was as pale as paper without a trace of blood. Even his voice had become incomparably weak. However, the resentment and regret in his eyes became even more profound. They came to Penglai Island this time. On the one hand they wanted to find Bailey Hongzhuang, on the other hand they wanted to improve their strength. Chapter 55-42. If they did not understand the existence of a higher level, perhaps they would be able to live leisurely like before. However, after knowing that the cultivators of Penglai Island were so powerful, they could no longer ignore it. Most importantly, Diujua's appearance allowed them to understand a brand new world. That level of strength was something they had never imagined before. It was only at that moment that they realized that they had always been frogs in a well. There were too many experts in this world, and in front of these experts they were simply ants. Hongzhuang had become the daughter-in-law of the Di family, which meant that she had entered a completely different environment from before. As Hongzhuang's maternal family, they naturally wanted to improve themselves. Even if they believed that with Di Baichen's sincerity towards Hongzhuang and Diujua's generosity and sincerity, Hongzhuang would not suffer any grievances after marrying into the Di family. However, as her maternal family, they did not wish to be a burden to Hongzhuang. They hoped that they could still be the most reliable backing for Hongzhuang. However, they did not expect that their luck would be so bad that they would be targeted by Yan Haoguang after coming here. They also did not expect that Yan Haoguang, as a teacher of the Crimson Moon sect, would be so despicable. Hearing Yu Linfeng's words, Lan Yunxiao could not help but frown and rejected him without thinking. Linfeng, don't say such things. We are brothers and I will never leave you alone. Moreover, Yan Haoguang will never let them leave. There are always people monitoring us outside the room. As long as we have the intention to secretly leave, we will definitely be discovered by them. Lan Yunxiao's handsome face revealed seriousness and contemplation. A trace of worry could not help but appear between his brows. The situation before him indeed made him feel deeply powerless. The Crimson Moon sect was an existence that could cover the sky with one hand and they had no chance of escaping. Yu Linfeng sighed. Yunxiao, I've implicated you this time. If he had not caused such trouble for no reason, they would not be in such a situation. What are you talking about? Lan Yunxiao's expression turned serious. This is an undeserved calamity. It has nothing to do with you, so don't take it to heart. If we're destined to lose our lives here, then that's our fate. He had already mentally prepared himself for this before he chose to come to Penglai Island. A resolute look appeared in Lan Yunxiao's eyes. He understood that he wasn't Yan Haoguang's match, but even if he had to sacrifice his life, he had to make the other party pay the price. Yu Linfeng fell silent. The situation before him made him feel deeply powerless. He didn't know how to face it. The poison in his body was getting deeper and deeper. He could clearly feel that even speaking had become extremely difficult for him. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Let's go. Lan Yunxiao helped Yu Linfeng up. At this moment, his two handsome faces were filled with determination and madness. This time they were going all out. Time passed by minute by minute. As the time approached, the crowd still had not seen Lan Yunxiao's figure and a commotion arose near the stage. It's almost time. Lan Yunxiao and the others couldn't have run away, right? Chapter 55-43. Instructor Yen, look, they're here. Yan Haoguang's gaze shifted when he heard his disciple's words. Sure enough, two figures slowly appeared outside. A trace of malice and jealousy flashed through Yan Haoguang's eyes when he noticed Lan Yunxiao's appearance. Humph! Yan Haoguang snorted with disdain. At least you didn't miss the appointment. Many of the cultivators present didn't recognize Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxiao, but when they noticed the gazes on them, they understood what was going on. I was curious why that woman chose Yu Linfeng and offended Yan Haoguang, but now I understand. They're really handsome men. Perhaps they really are Bailey Hongzhuang's relatives. You should know how devastatingly beautiful Bailey Hongzhuang is, right? Everyone's heart skipped a beat when they heard the man's words. Previously, they had indeed determined that all of this was a lie, but it was this seemingly ridiculous reason that made them somewhat believe it. If it was true, then it would be interesting. Linfeng, can you still hold on? Lan Yunxiao asked with concern as he looked at Yu Linfeng, who was struggling to breathe. Yu Linfeng nodded. Don't worry, I'm fine. I'll think of a way to get the antidote. Lan Yunxiao's eyes were resolute. Even if the chances were slim, he would do his best. Yu Linfeng looked deeply at Lan Yunxiao. His eyes, which were originally filled with resentment, suddenly calmed down and were filled with relief. They all knew in their hearts that after today, they might disappear from this world. But at the last moment at least they were united. Compared to many people this was a pretty good ending. Lan Yunxiao, you're finally here. I thought a coward like you wouldn't dare to come. When Yin Haoguang saw that everyone's attention was on Lan Yunxiao, he immediately gained the upper hand by a show of strength and mocked them. Lan Yunxiao's expression darkened and he coldly looked at the self-satisfied Yin Haoguang. You bully others like this, yet you still have the nerve to put on such an attitude. How laughable. His deep voice was filled with magnetism. Even if it was filled with resentment, it was still pleasing to the ears. Everyone's gaze landed on Lan Yunxiao. Even though he was isolated and helpless at this moment and was at an absolute disadvantage, his lofty posture still carried a majesty and sharp edge that couldn't be ignored. He stood there gracefully like an unsheathed sword, exuding an endless amount of sharpness. His intimidating aura made it impossible for others to joke and speak contemptuously. In an instant, many cultivators changed their thoughts. At the very least, they understood that this was a true man, and not someone as despicable and shameless as Yin Haoguang could compare to him. Yin Haoguang's expression darkened when he sensed the change in the crowd's attitude. He didn't like the way they looked at him. He was obviously stronger, but just because this guy had a face that was prettier than a woman's, everyone treated them differently. It was really abominable. This day next year will be the day you die. Chapter 55-44. As long as I defeat you, you'll let us go and give us the antidote, right? Lan Yunxiao looked at Yin Haoguang with a burning gaze. Even if the hope was slim, he still wanted to give it a try. Even if they were going to die, they would do their best. Following Lan Yunxiao's words, the cultivators around Yin Haoguang couldn't help but laugh. Haha, did I hear wrong? He actually wants to defeat Instructor Yin? This guy is probably stupid. With his strength, it's impossible for him to win, okay? Yin Haoguang's eyes were filled with disdain, but a playful smile suddenly appeared on his lips. That's right, I did say that before, but I've changed my mind now. Hearing this, Lan Yunxiao's expression darkened and a trace of gloom appeared on his handsome face. Yunxiao, I told you not to believe this guy. He's a despicable person who goes back on his words. Yu Linfeng couldn't help but be angry. Yin Haoguang was simply shameless to the extreme. From his playful appearance, he could guess that he wanted to trick them today. Yin Haoguang coldly glanced at Yu Linfeng before turning his gaze back. He originally intended to directly get rid of these two eyesores to establish his prestige and let everyone know that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. However, after seeing the change in everyone's attitude towards Lan Yunxiao, he changed his mind. The more Lan Yunxiao appeared to be unyielding, the more he wanted to humiliate him in front of everyone. So what if Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng were elegant gentlemen? He wanted to let everyone know that without strength, no matter how handsome a man was, he was nothing more than trash. A character that he could casually crush to death. As long as you make me happy, I'll hand over the antidote. How about it? Yin Haoguang teased. Lan Yunxiao stared fixedly at Yin Haoguang. From the latter's expression, he could guess that this wasn't something good. However, other than agreeing, he had no other way out. What do you want to do? Lan Yunxiao asked with narrowed eyes. My disciples are not in a good mood these days. Just stand there like a punching bag and don't move. As long as they vent their anger, I promise to let you go. How about it? Everyone sighed at his words. He wanted Lan Yunxiao to stand there obediently and take a beating. Sweeping his gaze around, he saw the cultivators surrounding Yin Haoguang. Just by looking at them, he could tell that they were not good people. Yin Haoguang's suggestion at this moment left him with no room for resistance. If he fought with Yin Haoguang, he would at least have a chance to fight back. Yin Haoguang's suggestion at this moment left him no room for resistance. Yin Haoguang is really too much. I really pity Lan Yunxiao and the others now. On this Scarlet Moon Island, don't you know what kind of character Yin Haoguang is? He's never been a straightforward person. Do you think Lan Yunxiao will agree? If you agree, you'll be courting death. Everyone furrowed their brows. They all understood the brotherly affection between Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng. If Yu Linfeng wasn't poisoned, Lan Yunxiao would definitely fight with his life on the line. But now that Yu Linfeng's life was in Yin Haoguang's hands, it was really difficult to decide what to do. As long as I don't fight back, you'll hand over the antidote? Lan Yunxiao asked again. Chapter 55-45. Yunxiao, you mustn't believe him. Yu Linfeng couldn't help feeling anxious. This Yin Haoguang was so shameless, so his words were probably just casual. They simply couldn't be trusted. Lan Yunxiao gazed deeply at Yan Haoguang. How can I believe you? It's up to you whether you believe me or not. Yan Haoguang spread out his hands with an indifferent expression. Yu Linfeng's life is in my hands. If you want to save him, then agree. If you want to watch him die, then it's up to you. Hearing this, Lan Yunxiao's heart sank. Indeed, all the chips were in Yan Haoguang's hands. He simply didn't have the qualifications to negotiate. All right, I agree, Lan Yunxiao said in a low voice. Yunxiao, you can't agree. Seeing that Lan Yunxiao actually agreed, Yu Linfeng used all his strength to shout. His eyes were bloodshot and the veins on his temples were bulging. However, he was already extremely weak. Even if he used all his strength, his voice was still pitifully small in this noisy environment. He couldn't let Lan Yunxiao suffer such humiliation in order to save him. In any case, I'm already a dying man. Even if they beat you to death, they won't keep their promise. Lan Yunxiao clearly heard Yu Linfeng's words, but he didn't turn around or change his mind. How could he not know that Yan Haoguang wasn't a trustworthy person? However, other than believing, he had no other choice. Even if there was only a glimmer of hope, he still had to try. I won't retaliate, but I hope you can promise me one thing. His deep eyes were filled with seriousness and gravity, as if he had made a huge decision. Speak. If I die, you must hand over the antidote and let Linfeng leave. His low and hoarse voice was unprecedentedly heavy. Lan Yunxiao's expression was complicated. If he was going to die today, then at least he had to use all his means to fight for Linfeng's life. As a mentor of the Crimson Moon sect, Yan Haoguang must have some face. If he promised him in front of everyone, then there was a possibility that he would abide by it. After hearing Lan Yunxiao's request, Yan Haoguang's gaze changed. He then nodded. All right, I'll consider it. If you don't retaliate, I can guarantee that I'll give him the antidote. After receiving an affirmative answer, Lan Yunxiao said, all right. His black jade-like eyes were filled with determination and determination. He had already lost his life a long time ago. To be able to live until now, it was already a blessing. If it wasn't for Linfeng, Hongzhuang wouldn't have been able to come back so smoothly. He would always remember this kindness. He didn't have a chance to return it in the past, but now was a chance. Seeing Lan Yunxiao agree, Yu Linfeng felt like he was about to go crazy. Lan Yunxiao actually made such a decision for someone like him, who was destined to die. Rather than that, he might as well just die. However, Lan Yunxiao didn't care. Seeing this, Yan Haoguang signaled with his eyes. The 4 disciples beside him immediately walked forward with cruel smiles on their faces. Since they were helping their master vent his anger, they naturally had to perform well. Chapter 55-46. As they watched Lan Yunxiao calmly meet his death, the spectators felt a sense of desolation and tragedy. They had only come here to watch a battle with a great disparity in strength. Even though they already knew the outcome, they still wanted to see a good show. However, when they realized that this was no longer a competition, but a show of contempt and devastation, their thoughts changed. The 4 disciples swarmed forward and unhesitatingly beat and kicked him. They were clear that Instructor Yen was unhappy with Lan Yunxiao, but he couldn't make a move in front of so many people, so he had them do it. If they wanted to win the instructor's favor, this was undoubtedly an excellent opportunity to perform. Bang bang bang. One attack after another landed mercilessly on Lan Yunxiao's body. Just hearing the dull thuds made the spectators' scalps tingle from the pain. However, Lan Yunxiao, who was being beaten up by the 4, calmly stood in place. He didn't retaliate, nor did he make a sound. He remained silent just like that. He was like an eternal rock that stood towering on the spot from the beginning until the end, and he revealed an indescribable firmness. Yu Linfeng watched as one attack after another landed on Lan Yunxiao's body. He only felt that all the punches and kicks were hitting his heart. This feeling was even more unbearable than being beaten to death. You idiot! Yu Linfeng cursed loudly. His bloodshot eyes turned moist and translucent. A man didn't cry easily. No matter how painful it was, he could endure it. Even if he had to die, he could face it calmly. However, he could not stand by and watch his brother die to save him. To him, this feeling was no different from being executed by 1,000 cuts. He would rather be the one to die. In the next instant, Yu Linfeng used all his strength to walk onto the stage and stand in front of Lan Yunxiao. The 4 people who were wildly beating Lan Yunxiao were startled when they saw Yu Linfeng appear. In the next instant, they glanced at Yan Haoguang, only to see him calmly standing in place with a trace of disgust on his face. Seeing this, the four immediately understood and their attacks became even more ruthless. They didn't attack the duo's vitals as soon as they arrived because they wanted to torture them. Who told them to make Instructor Yen lose face in front of so many people? Now they had to pay back everything. Lan Yunxiao's expression finally changed when he saw Yu Linfeng appear. What are you doing here? Get down quickly. Seeing the anxiety on Lan Yunxiao's face, Yu Linfeng chuckled. Brother, I'm afraid I can't avenge you, but I believe that Hong Zhuang will avenge us. Under such circumstances, smiles shouldn't appear on Yu Linfeng and Lan Yunxiao. However, Yu Linfeng's smile was from the bottom. Although this way of dying wasn't cool or wise enough, it was worth it to have a good brother to die with him. Lan Yunxiao, Lan of Lan Yunxiao of Lan's face, of course. I didn't expect to have to rely on Hong Zhuang in the end, but I believe she will. That's right. You have a good daughter and I have a good disciple. Fresh blood flowed from Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng's lips. At this moment, the two of them no longer had the ability to fight. Chapter 55-47. Lan Yunxiao originally had the strength to fight, but after being beaten up like this, it was difficult for him to even stand up. Blood had already dyed their clothes red, but the two of them gritted their teeth and didn't make a sound. Even if they were to die here today, they had to at least maintain their last shred of dignity. Yen Haoguang's actions today are too much. Even if Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxiao aren't his match, he shouldn't use such a method. He's a mentor of the Crimson Moon sect after all. Bullying two newcomers to Penglai Island is too much of a bully. I usually don't think so, but now I feel that the Crimson Moon sect can't compare to Penglai Palace. At least, the mentors of Penglai Palace wouldn't do such a thing. Even though Yen Haoguang was the one with the absolute advantage, no one present thought that he was amazing. On the contrary, Lan Yunxiao was a true hero in everyone's hearts. There were things a man should do and things he shouldn't do. For his brother, he was willing to give up his life. This was a true man. Yen Haoguang was originally looking at Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxiao with ridicule. He wanted to use this opportunity to teach them a lesson and let everyone know the price of offending him. However, he didn't expect the crowd to be so one-sided. Penglai Island was never a place that sympathized with the weak. Yet now, all these people were supporting Lan Yunxiao? Yen Haoguang's expression changed. This wasn't the result he wanted. Stop. Seeing that Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxiao were on the verge of death, Yen Haoguang shouted for them to stop. Following Yen Haoguang's words, the four disciples of the Crimson Moon sect immediately stopped and turned to look at him. Yen Haoguang raised his hand and the four of them quickly returned to their positions behind him. They secretly sighed in relief. In reality, they were extremely embarrassed when they were faced with the crowd's disdainful and mocking gazes. Using the strong to bully the weak, using numbers to bully the few, and being despicable and shameless. It didn't matter which one of these titles was hung on their heads, they wouldn't be happy, let alone when so many titles were hung on their heads. The faint smell of blood permeated the air and dyed Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxiao's clothes red. Flowers of blood blossomed on the ground and a tragic and desolate aura spread out. Compared to their miserable and sorry state, their eyes were still as sharp as an eagle's, and they revealed stubbornness and persistence. His sharp gaze seemed to be able to pierce through people's hearts. Facing those two eyes that were filled with blood qi, Yen Haoguang did not know why, but his heart actually trembled, and a trace of fear unconsciously flashed through his heart. However, when he thought about how the two people in front of him were about to die, he dispelled the thought in annoyance. Damn it. He was actually intimidated by the gazes of two ants. It was simply laughable. In the next moment, Yen Haoguang squatted down and looked at the two miserable faces in front of him. The corners of his mouth rose slightly, revealing a trace of playfulness. Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. I will give you a chance to live now. As soon as these words came out, all eyes turned to Yen Haoguang. They didn't expect this guy to have a bit of conscience and change his mind at the last moment. However, Lan Yunxiao and the other man only looked at him coldly without saying a word. It was impossible for such a despicable and shameless person to be so kind as to let them go. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many things happening now. Chapter 55-48. Yen Haoguang originally thought that after he said those words, he would definitely see Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunfeng's hopeful gazes. However, he didn't expect that the two of them didn't take his words to heart at all. Instead, it was as if they had seen through him. This feeling made him extremely unhappy. I'm speaking the truth, Yen Haoguang spoke again. Everyone here can bear witness. As long as you do it, I'll give you the antidote and let you leave Scarlet Moon Island. Lan Yunxiao's eyes turned gloomy and complicated. His voice was hoarse and suppressed. What is it? Yen Haoguang stood up abruptly, his fat face filled with pride. Here, my shoes are dirty. Yen Haoguang pointed at his shoes and his smile became increasingly arrogant. As long as you lick my shoes clean, I'll let you live. Isn't this simple? The conspiracy in Lan Yunxiao's eyes deepened. Even though he had already guessed that Yen Haoguang wouldn't say anything good, he still underestimated Yen Haoguang's shamelessness after hearing the contents of the conversation. In your dreams? Lan Yunxiao coldly said. Humph. Yen Haoguang's expression turned sinister. If you don't do as I say, you two can only die here today. Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng ignored him. They'd rather die than do such a thing. Di Beichen controlled the flying artifact and rushed at his fastest speed. Finally, he successfully arrived at Scarlet Moon Island. This is Scarlet Moon Island. Yizihua guided them along the way. Although Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang knew about Scarlet Moon Island, they'd never come here before. Scarlet Moon Island was one of the 3 most famous islands in Penglai Island. It was extremely vast. Buildings stood in great numbers and the streets were filled with people. The liveliness here wasn't inferior to Penglai Island. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest weren't in the mood to pay attention to all this. They only wanted to reach the stage as soon as possible. It was already noon, so the battle should have already begun. With Yen Haoguang's strength, it would only take him a short amount of time to kill the 2 of them. It was precisely because everyone knew of this situation that they remained silent. No one said anything. If they said something bad and made Bailey Hongzhuang's mood even worse, they didn't want to see that happen. Bai Congming and the other 2 walked at the front, leading the way. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest clearly did not know where the arena was. The group of people flew away as fast as they could. Even though they were extremely fast, many people still managed to see their faces clearly. Am I seeing things? I think I saw the Penglai Palace Master just now. I also think I'm mistaken because I actually saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. Everyone looked at each other as thoughts flashed through their minds. If it wasn't for the fact that there were other cultivators around, they would have thought that they were seeing things. I heard that today is the day Yen Haoguang will deal with Lan Yunxiao's group. Now that the Penglai Palace's people are here, could it be that Lan Yunxiao's group's identity is real? Chapter 55-49. There were already many people who had gone to the arena to watch the show. When the remaining cultivators found out that people from Penglai Palace had come, they all rushed over to watch the show. If this matter wasn't attractive to them before, it was now very attractive. Along the way, Bailey Hongzhuang's face was expressionless, but the sweat on her palms revealed her inner nervousness. If something happened to her father and master, she wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Yen Haoguang's expression darkened when he heard Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunfeng's rejection. He coldly looked at the 2 of them, his eyes filled with malice. Are you sure you want to refuse? Yen Haoguang coldly asked. Lan Yunxiao looked at Yen Haoguang with disgust. As a mentor of the Crimson Moon sect, you actually don't have any sense of existence. Can you only use this method to pretend to be an expert? His mocking words pierced Yen Haoguang's heart. In his fury he directly slapped him. Go to hell. Lan Yunxiao subconsciously closed his eyes. Rather than being humiliated here, he'd rather die a quick death. That would be more straightforward. However, the expected pain didn't come. Lan Yunxiao couldn't help but frown. Suddenly he heard Yu Linfeng's astonished voice. Hongzhuang. Yu Linfeng stared blankly at the figure that suddenly appeared in front of him. For a moment he only felt that he was too weak and had become delirious. Lan Yunxiao hastily raised his head. When he saw the familiar figure in front of him, his deep eyes filled with joy. That's right. This was Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang tightly grasped Yen Haoguang's hand. Her dark eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty glint as dense killing intent exploded from her body. The bloodstains on Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng's bodies were a ghastly sight. Even though she had already guessed that she would encounter such a situation before coming, when this bloody scene truly appeared, her heart was deeply shaken and pierced. Her father and master, the 2 people she had carefully protected, were actually beaten black and blue by this bastard from the Crimson Moon sect. Damn it. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was burning with killing intent. When Yen Haoguang saw a stunning woman suddenly appear in front of him, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Just as he was about to get angry, he found that this woman's strength was so terrifying that he couldn't break free. Not only that, the cold killing intent emitted from the woman's body seeped into his body, causing his heart to tremble uncontrollably in fear. Just as he was about to ask who this woman was, he suddenly heard a terrifying name, Bailey Hongzhuang. Now in the entire Penglai Island, who hasn't heard of Bailey Hongzhuang's name? Previously he already knew that Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxi claimed to be Bailey Hongzhuang's relatives, but he didn't take it seriously and even treated it as a joke. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had actually appeared? He took a closer look. Wasn't this woman's stunning appearance exactly in line with everyone's description of Bailey Hongzhuang? You dare to hit my father? The cold voice didn't have the slightest bit of warmth. The bloodthirsty killing intent was almost tangible. Bailey Hongzhuang expressionlessly looked at Yan Haoguang. Chapter 5550. Father. When Bailey Hongzhuang uttered these two words, everyone present was dumbfounded. After a short period of silence, the surroundings of the stage suddenly erupted into an even more shocking heated discussion. Heavens, Lan Yunxiao is actually Bailey Hongzhuang's father. This matter has blown up. Yan Haoguang actually dared to make a move against Bailey Hongzhuang's father. Isn't he courting death? At this moment, no one doubted the outcome. Suddenly, everyone felt that the affairs of the world were impermanent. A second ago, Yan Haoguang still held the absolute advantage, but now he wasn't far from death. Yan Haoguang was dumbstruck as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Everything that had happened in the past gave him a strong sense of unreality. He only felt that all of this must be a dream. How could such a coincidental thing happen? Crack. A crisp sound rang out, followed by the crackling sound of bones cracking. A blood-curdling scream rang out. Yan Haoguang's face instantly swelled red, so red that blood could drip out. His originally swollen face now swelled even more like a pig's head. The heart-wrenching scream attracted everyone's attention. Only then did they realize that Bailey Hongzhuang had directly crippled Yan Haoguang's hand. Not only did she break it, but she also directly shattered his finger bones into powder. His limp hand no longer had any support and just drooped down like that. Everyone couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. Just by looking at this situation they could feel the heart-wrenching pain. Yan Haoguang's first thought was to escape. If he continued to stay here, only death would await him. However, how could Bailey Hongzhuang give him the chance to leave? In the next instant, she lifted her right leg and stomped it on Yan Haoguang's foot. Crack. Another sound that made one's teeth ache rang out. Yan Haoguang screamed again, his face contorted from the pain. With his left leg crippled, he couldn't stand firm and directly fell to the ground. Was it you who beat them to this state? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed slightly as she looked down at the ugly bug on the ground. Her heart had long been filled with endless waves. This damned fellow, how dare he treat the people she cared about like this? Every single wound on her father and master's body, she wanted to return it to this guy. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang was like a god of death in Yan Haoguang's eyes. He was already unable to move under her terrifying pressure, let alone resist. He didn't even have the courage to resist. No. Yan Haoguang hurriedly shook his head, as if he was afraid that he would be treated like this again if he was a step slower. Who is that? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes dangerously. Her gaze swept across the arena and finally focused on the four people who were trembling on the other side. It's you? That's right, it's them. At this moment, Yan Haoguang couldn't care less about their relationship as master and disciple. He only wanted to survive. Everything else had nothing to do with him. When they saw that Yan Haoguang had placed all the blame on them, their already pale faces lost all color. Their legs trembled and they trembled so much that they couldn't even speak clearly. No, it's not that. The four people hurriedly waved their hands and retreated. Where was their previous arrogant and complacent look? It's not? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows. Chapter 55-51. Perhaps the people who were standing below the ring would not be able to sense how terrifying Bailey Hongzhuang's powers were. However, they were standing on the ring and could clearly feel the aura emitted by Bailey Hongzhuang. Under such coercion, they felt as if Mount Tai was pressing down on them and they found it difficult to move. Once Bailey Hongzhuang increases her coercion, perhaps they would be crushed into minced meat. This terrifying feeling terrified them to the extreme. No, they did it. Yan Haoguang cried out again. Thousands of thoughts were running through his mind as he desperately wanted to leave this place. Based on Bailey Hongzhuang's intelligence and wisdom, She could roughly guess the situation just by looking at the situation before her. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a cold smile as she withdrew her coercion. Feeling that their bodies were suddenly relaxed, the 4 disciples flew out of the ring without hesitation. If they did not leave now, they would never be able to leave again. Just as the crowd was wondering why Bailey Hongzhuang had chosen to let these fellows go, a clear and cold voice, which was like the sound of nature, rang out domineeringly, "Since you've made your move, all of you shall stay here." The next moment, in front of everyone's shocked eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang's 5 fingers stretched out, and the 4 disciples were caught by her. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly closed her hand and the 4 figures exploded into a mist of blood. Bang! A dull sound rang out and blood instantly stained the entire ring red. The cultivators who were closer to the ring were splashed with blood. The thick smell of blood filled the air and set off the peerless, fair face of hers, giving her an inexplicably enchanting and charming look. However, at this moment, no one dared to covet Bailey Hongzhuang's beauty. She was a terrifying and powerful woman. Even though the 4 cultivators were not particularly powerful, they were not weaklings since they had been able to make it to Penglai Island. However, this was all in the blink of an eye. Bailey Hongzhuang did not even look at the 4 cultivators. She simply waved her hand and the 4 of them were turned into a mist of blood before they even had the chance to retaliate. Almost everyone present was shocked by Bailey Hongzhuang's attack. They have never seen such great power before. What kind of power is this? Bailey Hongzhuang is a little too powerful, isn't she? I've never seen such a powerful cultivator. Heavens, what kind of opponent has Yan Haoguang provoked? At the same time, the cultivators of the Crimson Moon sect sensed that something was amiss. Initially, they had only been dealing with 2 cultivators who had just arrived. But who would have thought that these 2 cultivators were backed by such a powerful organization? Based on Bailey Hongzhuang's fury, killing Yan Haoguang would not be enough to quell her anger. If the Crimson Moon sect was implicated, it would be disastrous. Bai Cangming and the rest could not help but look at each other when they saw this scene. They had long known that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others would become extremely powerful after ascending to the upper realm. However, this level of power still shocked them. Indeed, it was necessary to set such a rule between the upper realm and the lower realm. Otherwise, any cultivator from the upper realm would be able to turn the lower realm upside down. While Bailey Hongzhuang was teaching Yan Haoguang and the others a lesson, Di Beichen and the others had already helped Lan Yunxiao and the other to the side. Chapter 55-52. Just by looking at the bloodstains on their bodies, he could tell how serious their injuries were. If they had come just a bit later, they would have already lost their lives. Di Beichen couldn't help but rejoice. Fortunately, they had coincidentally returned today. Otherwise, it would have been terrible if they missed this opportunity. After taking the pills, Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng felt the pills melt in their mouths. Their already terrible bodies were recovering at an extremely fast speed. Sensing this, the 2 of them couldn't help but be shocked. This was the power of the upper realm. The effects of pills were much stronger. Di Beichen Linfeng was poisoned by Yan Haoguang, Lan Yunxiao hastily said. Although his injuries were serious, they could be healed with some time. However, Linfeng had been poisoned for a long time. If he didn't quickly take the antidote, he wouldn't be able to hold on. When he heard that Yu Linfeng was poisoned, Di Beichen's gaze darkened. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang on the stage. Hongzhuang, Master Yu was poisoned. Bailey Hongzhuang, who was about to teach Yan Haoguang a lesson, heard this and her gloomy face became even more ruthless. You even poisoned my master? Yan Haoguang was already scared out of his wits when he saw how Bailey Hongzhuang dealt with the 4 disciples. With such strength, he was simply no match for her. Now that he heard those chilly words again, he was almost scared out of his wits. I have the antidote here, the antidote. Yan Haoguang trembled as he raised the antidote with both hands. His pale face was filled with terror. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang was the king of hell in his eyes. No matter how hard he racked his brain, he couldn't think of a way to escape. Right now, the only thing he could think of was to stall for time. If the sect master came, perhaps there would still be room to turn things around. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. With a flash of energy, the antidote landed in front of Di Beichen. Di Beichen immediately gave the antidote to Yu Linfeng. Although Hongzhuang definitely wouldn't have a problem detoxifying the poison, Yu Linfeng had clearly been poisoned for a long time and couldn't be delayed any longer. After taking the antidote, Yu Linfeng felt his body gradually improving. The feeling of being suppressed to the point where he couldn't even speak was gradually disappearing. He immediately let out a sigh of relief. Miss Bailey, I really didn't know they were your relatives. If I knew it, I wouldn't dare to provoke them. Yan Haoguang knelt in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, his other hand pulling on Bailey Hongzhuang's trousers. Where was the arrogance from before? At this moment he was about to die from regret. If he knew these two people had such a terrifying background, he definitely wouldn't have provoked them. Definitely not. They already told you. Didn't you still provoke them? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were indifferent. Even though her heart was filled with boundless killing intent, she didn't immediately kill him. This fellow had humiliated the people she cared about. If she let him die so easily, wouldn't it be letting him off too easily? Yan Haoguang wanted to cry. He did hear Lan Yunxiao and Bailey Hongzhuang say it, but not only him, there was no one present who believed it. All right. Chapter 55-53. Swoosh. With a flash of energy, a hole was pierced through Yan Haoguang's body. Blood quickly flowed out. Ah! Yan Haoguang screamed. Although this wound wasn't life-threatening, the pain was intense. With one arm and one leg crippled and the wounds on his body, no matter how stupid Yan Haoguang was, he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was planning to fix him. This meant that he couldn't even die a quick death. What are you screaming for? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned and waved her hand. Another burst of energy shot out and another bloody hole appeared. Her father and master had been beaten black and blue, but they still hadn't said a word. This guy was only slightly injured, but he was wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. It was really unpleasant to hear. Yan Haoguang groaned and forcibly swallowed his voice. He didn't dare to make another sound, or else Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely drill a third hole in his body. However, in the next moment, another burst of energy flashed by and another wound appeared. There's no sound at all. It seems like this wound doesn't hurt, Bailey Hongzhuang said indifferently. Yan Haoguang really didn't know what to say. It wasn't right for him to make a sound, but it wasn't right for him to not make a sound either. What exactly did she want him to do? Seeing this scene, everyone understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was just toying with Yan Haoguang. No matter what Yan Haoguang did, Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't stop her attacks. However, nobody thought that there was anything wrong with Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, because Yan Haoguang's actions towards Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxiao were even more excessive. Yan Haoguang is dead for sure today. Bailey Hongzhuang will definitely torture him to death. He deserves it. He just had to humiliate Lan Yunxiao and Lan Xinyuan without rhyme or reason. Now that he's caused so much trouble, only death is waiting for him. This is called the evils we bring upon ourselves. I almost couldn't bear it when he was so excessive before. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang is acting, I feel a bit better. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. This was probably the result of doing too much evil. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang on the stage. He didn't make a move from beginning to end because he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to take revenge herself. When they knew Yan Haoguang's name, he was destined to die tomorrow. Lan Yunxiao and Lan Xinyuan didn't feel anything wrong. This wretched guy should have died long ago. Yun Yunxiao. And Yu Yunza's words. Lan Yunxiao revealed a knowing smile. I just didn't expect it to be so soon. From the looks of it, the two of us are quite lucky. It seems like the heavens don't want to take our lives. Just a little bit more and they would have lost their lives here. But just a little bit more and they managed to keep their lives. After the cultivators reported, the sect master of the Crimson Moon sect also learned of this matter. He was shocked and felt his scalp go numb. That wretched Yan Haoguang. Of all the people he could provoke, he just had to provoke Bailey Hongzhuang. The sect master of the Crimson Moon sect stomped his feet, his face filled with anger and impatience. After Bailey Hongzhuang's incident, the Crimson Moon sect suffered a heavy blow and almost collapsed. Chapter 55-54. Sect Master, should we make a trip to the arena? I heard that the Palace Master of Penglai Palace and Long Yanwei are both here. Instructor Lu had an anxious look on his face. This situation had exceeded all of their expectations. Actually, he already knew that Yan Haoguang was planning to use this opportunity to teach Lan Yunxiao and Long Yanwei a lesson. At that time, he had only thought that Yan Haoguang was being senseless. As a Crimson Moon sect's instructor, he had done something so harmful to himself. However, he could not be bothered with him. After all, he was not on the same side as Yan Haoguang. However, Yan Haoguang had provoked Bailey Hongzhuang, so the situation was different. Back then, the disciples of the sect had provoked Bailey Hongzhuang. After that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had disappeared without a trace. Then, a group of people from the Di family had suddenly appeared and pressured them without a single word. It was then that the Crimson Moon sect had felt the threat of destruction for the first time. Fortunately, the other party was a reasonable person. After killing all the cultivators who had participated in the incident, they had left them a way out. Otherwise, the Crimson Moon sect would have been removed from Penglai Island from that day onwards. From that day onwards, everyone in the Crimson Moon sect had thought of two people that they must never offend, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. However, they had now provoked them again. Furthermore, Yin Haoguang was going against Bailey Hongzhuang's father. One could imagine how serious the situation was just by thinking about it. Instructor Lu, this? The sect master's expression was filled with hesitation. He really wished that he could turn into a beast and slap that idiot Yin Haoguang to death. He had turned a blind eye to Yin Haoguang's outrageous acts on a daily basis. However, he had provoked such a fiend for the sect. At this moment, he really did not know how to deal with this situation. Forget it, let's go and take a look at the situation first. The sect master pondered for a moment before speaking. After all, Bai Tsangming was already here. It would be inappropriate if he did not go. The arena was drenched in blood. Now the entire arena was almost dyed red with blood, and the thick smell of blood spread. Yin Haoguang was extremely weak at the moment. He frowned as he endured the intense pain, but he did not even have the strength to groan. If he could, he really wanted to die a quick death. At this moment, he was even a little envious of the four people who had crushed Bailey Hongzhuang into a bloody mist. At least they didn't have to endure such inhumane torture. Unfortunately, there was nothing he could do now. Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was terrifyingly strong. In front of her, he was like a helpless person. He didn't even have the strength to fight back. From the beginning to the end, this was a one-sided torture. "I beg you, give me a quick death," Yin Haoguang said weakly. Bailey Hongzhuang's cold eyes didn't change. "When you treated my father, did you have the slightest bit of mercy? How about this, I'll give you a chance too." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a bloodthirsty and enchanting smile. It was dazzling under the brilliant sunlight. Yin Haoguang looked at the woman who was radiating boundless brilliance from above. He suddenly understood how Lan Yunxiao and the other two felt earlier. However, he did not expect that retribution would come so quickly. In the blink of an eye, it had already fallen on him. "Take this pill. As long as you don't die, I'll spare your life." Her lips curled up slightly. Before Yin Haoguang could react, the pill had already been forcefully swallowed. Cough, cough, cough. Chapter 55-55. After taking the pill, Yin Haoguang's face was also ashen. Although he didn't know what pill it was, he knew it couldn't be anything good just by thinking about it. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure flashed and appeared beside Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng. Different from her previous coldness, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression immediately became gentle. Her voice was sweet and pleasant, filled with deep concern. "Father, Master, how are you feeling?" Lan Yunxiao patted Bailey Hongzhuang's hand with an amiable smile. "Don't worry, we're fine." Bailey Hongzhuang grabbed Lan Yunxiao's hand and took his pulse. After taking his pulse, her gaze towards Yin Haoguang became even more ruthless. When she first saw Lan Yunxiao, she knew that his injuries were extremely serious. But now, it seemed that his injuries were even more serious than she had imagined. Fortunately, he had already taken the pill and felt a little better. However, he still needed to be carefully nursed back to full health. As for Yu Linfeng, his situation was even worse. After being poisoned, he was heavily injured and the poison had already entered his internal organs. Even though he had taken the antidote, the poison had been too long and had damaged his foundation. She knew all too well what it meant for a genius like her master to have his foundation damaged. And all of this was because of that despicable person, Yin Haoguang. "Hongzhuang, what kind of pill did you feed him?" Shengguan Yingying couldn't help but ask. She didn't know why Hongzhuang didn't directly kill Yin Haoguang. Could it be that the effect of the pill was even more painful? It's enough to make him regret it for the rest of his life. Her ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with cruelty. She had no interest in humiliating others, but she would never show mercy to her enemies. Moreover, this wretched fellow dared to treat her family like this. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This was her style. Hearing this, Shengguan Yingying understood immediately. She sighed inwardly. Yin Haoguang was so blind that he had to provoke Hongzhuang. He deserved it. Then, everyone saw that Yin Haoguang's face was filled with pain. His veins were bulging and he kept rolling on the ground. His heart-wrenching screams were heard, as if every second he lived was torture. Seeing this scene, everyone present could not help but shudder. It was too tragic. Even though he didn't know what kind of pain it was, he could imagine it when he thought about how Yin Haoguang wasn't in such pain when his hands and feet were crippled. "Bailey Hongzhuang, what are you doing?" A middle-aged man suddenly appeared near the ring. At this moment he was looking angrily at Bailey Hongzhuang. The sudden voice attracted everyone's attention. Everyone turned to look. They didn't know who was so blind as to provoke Bailey Hongzhuang at this time. Wasn't this courting death? However, when everyone saw who it was, they understood what was going on. This person was none other than Elder Yen Ping of the Crimson Moon sect. Elder Yen has actually come. He must have rushed over after hearing the news, right? Elder Yen has always been very protective of Yen Haoguang. If it weren't for Elder Yen, Yen Haoguang wouldn't have been able to attain such a position in the Crimson Moon sect. Based on what I can see, Elder Yan's powers can't be compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, right? Isn't he courting death by coming here at this time? Chapter 55-56. When Elder Yen saw that Yen Haoguang had been tortured until he no longer resembled a human, he was seething with anger. His eyes were spitting fire and he was about to explode at any moment. He has no children and has always raised this nephew of his as his own son. All these years, Yen Haoguang's performance has never disappointed him. To be able to reach such a level of cultivation at such a young age and even become a teacher in the Crimson Moon sect, Elder Yen did not mind even if Yen Haoguang had gone overboard. After all, in the world of the powerful, this was the most normal thing to do. However, he never thought that Yen Haoguang would be humiliated to such an extent today. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard this voice, she turned around and looked at the fellow who had suddenly appeared in front of her. She raised her brows and a wicked, cold smile appeared in her eyes. She does not know who this fellow was, but based on the fact that he had stepped forward to stand up for Yen Haoguang, she could guess that he was either a relative or a member of the Crimson Moon sect. Long Yanwei recognized the newcomer immediately. He also knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others would not know much about this, so he immediately introduced him. "This is Yen Haoguang's uncle and an elder of the Crimson Moon sect." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others immediately understood. If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Based on Yen Haoguang's conduct, I'm afraid that Elder Yen is not a good person either. Shengguan Yingying rolled her eyes. Ever since this fellow had appeared, she had not had a good impression of him. It was obvious that he was another fellow who would cause her to lose her appetite. "Yingying, that's where you're wrong." Xiren's expression straightened. Just as the crowd was wondering why Xiren's attitude was different from before, they suddenly heard this fellow speak. "What do you mean by afraid? He's definitely not a good person." Elder Yen, who was already enraged, was now fuming with rage. He glared fixedly at Xiren, hating that he could not swallow this fellow who had disrespected him alive. Bailey Hongzhuang stared calmly at Elder Yen, who seemed to have been set on fire. Her lips curled into a mocking smile. "Can't you see what I'm doing? Are you blind?" Elder Yen was furious when he saw how disrespectful Bailey Hongzhuang was to him, and he turned to look at Bai Tsangming. "Palace Master Bai, why don't you take care of your Penglai Palace's people?" Bai Tsangming smiled when he heard that. "Elder Yen, you're mistaken. Even I have to be respectful when I see them. You want to control them? That's impossible." Elder Yan's face froze when he heard this, and a look of astonishment appeared in his eyes. However, all the cultivators present could not help but sigh after hearing all this. Sure enough, the status of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others was now extraordinary. Even the leader of Penglai Palace had to be respectful to her. Although no one knew where Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had gone during this period of time, they could tell that her position was not simple from the strength she had just displayed. Even if it was Palace Lord Bai, his strength would not be comparable to Bailey Hongzhuang. Elder Yen was also in disbelief compared to everyone else's matter-of-fact attitude. "Palace Master Bai, are you kidding me? She's an inner palace disciple of your Penglai Palace. How can you not take care of her? Could it be that you think that I've been in closed-door cultivation for a while and you're casually teasing me?" Bai Tsangming glanced at Elder Yen lazily, but he was too lazy to say anything more to this fellow. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.